Welcome to the Magna AI Podcast, where we sit down with principals, district leaders, and instructional innovators who are reshaping what's possible in the classroom with a little help from AI. Together, we explore how school leaders are using smart tools and bold ideas to support teachers, personalize learning, and improve outcomes for every student. Great. Hey, Michael. Welcome to the Magna Education AI podcast. And it's great to have you here. Do you want to talk a little bit about what brought you into, you've been a lifelong educator, how you came into the field, and then how your journey has been through like a teacher and an administrator? And
so Sarvesh, thank you first and foremost for having me on. I'm excited for the conversation. Anytime I get to talk about teaching and learning, I'm happy to do so. So this is actually September 1st will mark my 20th year in education. I started in September. Yeah, it's 20 years this year. So I started.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I started in September, obviously, of 2005, and I'd gone to small liberal arts college in northern New Jersey called Ramapo College of New Jersey. I'm actually an adjunct professor there now. Did my student teaching at Lakeland Regional High School, which is in Wanacue, which is a suburb in northern New Jersey. I was a social studies teacher for 9 years. I was a coach. I was a club advisor. I did a little bit of everything. And then in 2015, an opportunity opened up for me to get into administration. Supervisor who was my previous supervisor had decided to retire after a long and storied career. And she really afforded me the opportunity toward the last years of my career in the classroom to, I guess, be put in a position where I was fortunate enough to be hired. So I was supervisor of humanities from 2015 to 2019, and then a position to open up in the same district at Lakeland, where I had become the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction. And I did that through COVID, which was obviously a little bit challenging. And after 19 years, I decided to leave Lakeland. So in August of 2024, I made the jump over to where I am now currently, which is Northern Highlands Regional High School, which is a crown jewel of Bergen County. It is a very high functioning, incredibly strong academic programs, athletic programs, extracurricular programs in Bergen County. And I also serve, like I said before, as an adjunct professor in the teacher ed program at Ramapo College.
Wow, great. That's some amazing journey. And I believe like then it's going to mark your first year at your current school pretty soon too.
Yeah.
Great.
This is,
and
it's been a great year. It was really difficult to make the decision, especially after you've been somewhere for so long and you kind of fall in love with a community after a while. And I really had the opportunity to work with some incredible students and incredible teachers and some really good administrators too. And it was a very difficult decision to leave, but I felt myself kind of going stale. And I was ready for a new opportunity to learn from some of the best and brightest administrators and teachers and students in the entire country, I think.
Yeah, you got right on point. Actually, I was looking at the AP scores of your current school, and they're like really good. So yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah. Those results just came out on July 7th, and depending on what metric you're looking at, it's anywhere between 93 to 95% of the students who scored a 3, 4, or 5. So it's a testament to our teachers and our students and our content area supervisors and our building principal too, who does a remarkable job of creating kind of a structure where our students can thrive.
Excellent. So you've been through different roles, right? Like teachers, administrator, and so on.
Yeah.
And over the past few years, like teaching has changed a lot, like with new tools and so on. Today, what do you see as some of the biggest gaps in terms of like teacher support? And what do you think is being done to kind of help teachers close those gaps?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about my own experience. I think when I first started in administration in 2015, I kind of approached teacher support almost like a checklist to make sure that they had the resources, answer their questions, provide them with a a pacing guide, a curriculum, and kind of get out of their way. And in some cases it was helpful, but as time went on, I realized that support was a lot more than just providing materials. It meant creating a culture where people could feel safe, trusted, value, where they actually wanted to show up and do the work and give their best. And I think one of the lessons that I've learned, and one of the real significant changes that I've seen over time, is the power of relationships. I think it took me a really long time to understand that building strong relationships, I felt like I was good at doing it as a teacher. It was one of the things that came naturally to me as a teacher, but it was also equally essential among adults. And you can have the best professional development in the world, but if teachers don't trust you and they don't feel as if you really do have their back, especially in tough moments with parents or in the face of some criticism, it doesn't really matter. I think trust is everything. I also believe that culture has kind of been shaped by the concept of being intentional. It being intentional with the way that you interact with people, and just trying to figure out exactly how to support teachers with what they need right now in the immediacy.
Great. So as things have changed, I know like the environment is changing so fast. Do you see that like compared to 5 years ago, and I don't know if that is a good benchmark, because 5 years ago COVID was there, but again, compared to a few years back and now, what's the difference between what kind of support teachers need?
So it's interesting. I actually had a conversation yesterday. We have a summer academy program here. It's not your conventional summer school. It's not for remediation. It's for advancement. So we have an opportunity for students at Northern Highlands to take advancement classes over the summer in order to kind of like advance their track in science and mathematics and financial literacy and SAT and those kind of things. But we have a few teachers, obviously, who are working the program. And I had a conversation with a veteran teacher the other day, and we were kind of reminiscing about what we would call like the quote unquote like good old days, where a teacher's day was 90% of instruction. Like they could devote 90% of the time to actually teaching. Back then, the main job was like to teach, connect, and help students grow. But over time, like that balance shifted, and it shifted considerably. I think 5 years is probably a good time frame for us to look at. And layer by layer, more responsibilities have been added. Data analysis, which I don't think any teacher is really formally trained in. Tech management, which some teachers are really good at it, some teachers aren't. Coming out of the pandemic, but coming out of the pandemic, especially mental health monitoring. And then there's just the compliance tasks that kind of get dropped on teachers by the Department of Education. So looking at all of those shifts, it's important for school leaders to understand that professional development and support has to be responsive to all of those things. I think if you asked 10 teachers, I would like to believe that 9 of them would say that time is probably the thing that they would want to have back the most.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, exactly. So, as you talked about the time being so precious, right, and teachers being burdened with so many different tasks, and I think you talked about like data analysis and so on and so forth. What we are seeing now, like with AI and so on, is that it is being pitched as something that a technology that can actually help with all those things. So, can you talk about like if your district is planning something at the intersection of AI and instruction, or maybe in general, like how you're seeing AI, how it could actually help solve some of these challenges?
Yeah, so we have instructional coaches here and supervisors who are remarkably forward-thinking. And I think 2 years ago, kind of the advent of all of the AI stuff beginning to blow up in public schools, before I got here, they really took a forward-thinking stance on how we were going to use artificial intelligence to support teachers as practitioners, educators as practitioners. We're going to talk about classroom teachers, but really it can be anybody who works within the function of a school district. And what we did is we contracted with a company called Brisk AI. And we had an AI committee this year, And we looked at a lot of different kind of like school-based platforms and programs, and we made the decision to go with that program. And what we did was, knowing that there were some teachers who were completely uncomfortable with AI, and there were other teachers who were exceptionally comfortable with AI, we actually created, for this past year, we created an AI PD program where there were tiered levels of support. So you would self-identify essentially as a tier 1 person, where you have very limited understanding when it comes to AI and how it can help you in the classroom. Tier 2 would be a better understanding. Hey, I know how to use AI. Can you show me how to use it to take my lesson plans and create instructional materials, and then, or rubrics, or, anything like that, Google slide presentations. And then we had a third tier, which essentially those were our experts, quote unquote, in the field. And they were able to go and attend seminars that were student facing. So how do we, all right, as educators, so we know how to use AI to help with our workflow. How now can we introduce this to our students to help guide their learning in an individualized and personal way? And our Board of Education and our superintendent have been really, really generous with both time and resources. So we have an interesting PD model here where our professional development doesn't take place in the afternoons. It actually takes place in the morning before the students get here. So we have a set number of, we call them PD pathway mornings, where our staff members have the opportunity to go to a bunch of different seminars that are actually offered by our teachers. And our teachers are compensated, obviously, for hosting those things. And we found that the most meaningful professional development, as a director of curriculum instruction and as somebody who's an AI nerd myself, I can certainly stand up in front of a group of people and say, hey, this is how you should use this tech tool in order to make you a better geophysics teacher. I was a social studies teacher. I was never a geophysics teacher. I was never a science teacher. So, and also I'm a member of the administration, right? Some people look at administration, us versus them. So I'm one of them, quote unquote. Why not allow those people who are using the tools in their classrooms with their students in that subject area provide professional development? Because there really is a level of trust there. So I love the way that it was rolled out at Highlands this year, and we're continuing that program into next year too. I'm actually, before we got on, I was putting a presentation together that I'm giving to our staff on August 28th. It's a voluntary presentation, summer hours, about, it's an intro to Brisk. So that's what we've been doing. We're excited to kind of like welcome AI to make our lives easier. I think when I looked at a statistic last week, it's like, I think if you use AI effectively within your workflow as a teacher, it can probably give you about 20 hours back per week.
Yeah, totally. Actually, that's really amazing, actually, statistic. And with the teachers, as you talked about, being so overburdened, it really, really helps. And I think what you talked about, like rolling out the PD, it syncs so well with your earlier statement about building trust, right? And then in some of the other schools and districts also, we see this kind of a thing where the most successful programs, where actually administration works really closely with the teachers and then gets everybody's buy-in, are the ones that actually are most successful. Yeah. So great. Yeah. So congratulations on being at the forefront of this change.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. So another thing that we are actually seeing is there tools which actually give a lot of like productivity back, and one thing I feel like teachers, when I hear from them, is the productivity is obviously great, but then they want to use AI as a tool of like creativity and actually do better than what was actually being done before too, right? Yeah. So, and one of the challenges that we see with our teachers is essentially, and my son is actually a high school senior, going a rising senior, is like, because teachers are so overburdened, the ability for them to give timely feedback to the students is actually a major challenge, right? So like now you're leading a district for curriculum and instruction. So how do you evaluate like effectiveness of, for example, assessments on a district-wide scale?
Yeah, so it's difficult. I think that they're all, and I can say this wearing multiple hats, right? So I'm an adjunct professor in a teacher preparation program, and I like to believe we have a really strong program. Obviously, I'm saying that with a little bit of a bias, but I can also wear it as somebody who is currently in the field, in the trenches, so to speak, when it comes to assessment development and analyzing assessments. I don't think that out of the instructional cycle, and the way that I look at the instructional cycle, it's instructional planning, instructional delivery, and then assessment for and of learning. And it's supposed to be cyclical. A lot of times it's not. You develop a unit plan, deliver the instruction, you assess, and then regardless of what the actual assessment data says, you just kind of move on. One of the cool things about AI is you now have the ability to look at assessment data to target instruction. And we've always had the ability to look at the data. In New Jersey, in order to graduate high school, you have to take an assessment. It's called the NJGPA. It stands for the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment. And there's other assessments too. Grades 3 through 9 take something called the NJSLA. Yeah. And there's always been this cool function. And the assessment is relatively new. It started right before COVID. COVID obviously like disrupted everything. And then, we went back to it to accountability back in 2022. But one of the interesting functions of the assessment on the reporting side is it creates this chart for you, and it charts the questions statewide from most difficult to least difficult. And then it'll show you the state average on those questions, right? That's how it charts it between, most difficult to least difficult. And you can see in comparison how well your students did as compared to how the students did in the state of New Jersey. It's a New Jersey only assessment, right? So it's giving you only this sample size. And each one of the questions at the bottom aligns to a New Jersey student learning standard, something that we're required to teach as per the Department of Education. We always had the ability to kind of look at that data and say, okay, where are we strong? Where do we need to develop a little bit more? But now with AI, it allows us to put that information into whatever agent you want to talk about, right? Doesn't matter. We're putting it into an agent, and it allows us to analyze the data more quickly and then make informed instructional decisions. So if we're weak on question 8, and question 8 deals with a New Jersey student learning standard that deals with, reading informational text, close reading of informational text, we know that we can develop an assignment or two that aligns directly to the close reading of informational text. So I think that assessment design out of all of those cycles is probably the weakest, because I've never seen a really good college level curriculum on how to teach students how to assess. But now that you have all of these tools at your disposal, you can kind of work backwards from, all right, what are my intended results? What do I want the students to be able to get out of this? And then develop assessments that kind of align to it. So it's a fascinating time. I think that the pedagogy has to catch up to the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, things are changing so fast that the teaching education programs themselves have to keep pace with the technologies out there, and how they can actually use it to actually develop the new generation of educators and so on. So it's really, really interesting what you talked about, like the entire feedback cycle and actually informing instruction based on the how the students are actually performing, right? And then that is something that we are also seeing that's very, very effective a way to actually improve student learning and outcomes as well. So in terms of, you talked about like the assessment test that you generally have in the process of like the entire school year, for example, formative assessment, and I'm assuming what you talked about was mostly summative assessment.
Yeah.
In terms of the school year, in terms of formative assessments, are you seeing any kind of tools and so on, or maybe what kind of challenges, maybe that's what we talk about first, is what kind of challenges do you see with respect to like the formative assessments and giving feedback to students in time?
I think it's time. I think we talked about it at the top of the pod. I think it's time. I think that teachers don't feel as if they have the ability to, we're supposed to be using formative assessments. They got instruction, right? It's the whole purpose of it. I don't necessarily think that teachers have or feel as if they have the time to develop meaningful formative assessments. And then I'll just, speaking from a high school standpoint, you want to believe that your scope and sequence is always going to be similar, right? If it's a Tuesday, I'm on unit 1, you're on unit 1, we're on day 1, tomorrow we're going to be on day 2, and we're going to be in lockstep when it comes to our curriculum. It's not always kind of the way that it works. So I think one of the challenges, and we don't do it here at Northern Highlands, we're working towards it. And I've been fortunate enough to kind of work in a really, you talked about the AP exam results before. I work in talk about a really high achieving district, right? Amongst the highest achieving districts in the entire country. And I'm not being hyperbolic there. Our students, tend to do exceptionally well. You can fake GPA. You can't fake AP scores. That's a genuine marker of academic excellence and academic achievement. We have 95% of your kids, and we have we were talking about 1,200 exams that have been taken. You can't really do that. So you would think in a district like us that has such academic success, we have these standardized formative assessments that everybody gives, and then we're using that to guide, instructional planning moving forward. We don't. We're trending in that direction where we're creating common formative assessments. But for us, that's a 2 or 3 year project. One of the things that we're working on, and I'm really excited to work on with our supervisors and our teachers next year, is one of our professional development goals for 25-26 is the development of teaching and learning philosophies. So we have one as a district, and each individual department is now going to develop their own as to how it aligns to their specific content area. So we know by the time that our students graduate from Northern Highlands, we want them to be critical thinkers. What does that look like in a science class, right? And then to speak to your point about assessment, how do we develop formative assessments to ensure that they are meeting those specific benchmarks?
Yeah, exactly. And because I think they have to eventually feed into like the summative assessments and so on. So as you think about this challenge, right? I mean, you said like you are putting in a plan in place, maybe in the next few years to reach that point. What are you seeing today? So one is obviously time. That's definitely a challenge. But in terms of even teacher training, right? What are you seeing challenges with respect to that? Like where you feel that teachers would need some training to be able to figure out how do you actually give a feedback which is standards aligned and is actually actionable for students.
Yeah, there's this like general belief out there that all teachers are taught in teacher prep programs to be data analysts. And I can tell you as somebody who works in a college prep program, teacher prep program at the college level, they're not. At least it's not part of our, the course that I have. Again, I think that the teacher preparation programs have to catch up to what is actually going on in the classroom. And I think one of the benefits, and I talk to my Ramapo College students about this, is I'm an adjunct professor. So I have a day job where I'm working like in the trenches. So I can talk about trends that are going on right now and then try to infuse those trends that are currently happening in a K-12 setting into the class. But PD is its time and its professional development. I think that we take for granted that staff know how to analyze data and then provide feedback that's informed and actionable. And I can tell you that I never went through that formal training. I've never sat through a solid professional development that provides that training to any teachers. I would love a product out there that would do something like that.
Great. Wonderful. So actually, this is really amazing that you have like some university level experience and then you're actually involved at the university level, because I feel like there is quite a big difference, right, in terms of how things work at the school system and for good reasons, right, and then how things work at the university level. Are you seeing some differences in which how kind of universities are actually moving compared to how schools are moving in terms of adopting new technology and so on. Yeah, just
Yeah, I think I can only speak about my experience. Again, I've had an incredible experience working at Ramapo College, and we have a new dean, and he is a retired superintendent who is left the field very recently. So he is plugged into trends in education right now. So I can only speak for what I'm seeing at Ramapo College, but I can speak, as we're hiring people. We just went through our hiring cycle where we start school in September here in New Jersey, and we will have our official onboarding that takes place in August. And, having hired people on staff in my previous district and hired people here and been through one kind of onboarding process last year where I was going through it kind of myself. I think onboarding needs to be completely revamped wholly. But I also think that colleges and universities haven't necessarily yet caught up to things that are going on within the classroom. And that's why in New Jersey, we have a student teaching model where it's called clinical internship. And they have a full year now clinical internship. So they have the first part of their clinical practice. They're in district 2 days a week where they're observing and they're beginning to kind of see things that are going on. And then second half of it would be your conventional like student teacher, so to speak. They'd be there 5 days a week. And to be completely candid, that's probably when they learn the most about how to be an effective teacher. And I'm not sure that we at the post-secondary level are keeping up necessarily with trends that are going on in education. The system itself can be a little bit archaic at the post-secondary level. I can say that at Ramapo, we're not. I believe that we are a really forward-thinking department. At Highlands, we're exceptionally forward-thinking. So I hope that the colleges and universities are going to begin to kind of catch up. It almost feels like, the colleges and universities should be like one step ahead of the trends that are going on in the secondary schools or K-12. And I don't necessarily think that that's always the model.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Cool. So one thing, and this is in the current environment, you at one side you see this like a whole technology revolution that actually is coming, and at the other side you see this wall where suddenly a lot of funding actually is going away. So how are you actually, or your district, how are you actually reconciling these two kind of diverging things, and how are you setting your strategy and maybe figuring out how do you get funding to fund some of these key initiatives, which can really make a major impact in the lives of teachers and students?
Yeah, New Jersey's really good at advertising competitive grants. So anytime there's a competitive grant that comes out at the state level, we get a broadcast from the Department of Education like, hey, there's a grant available for this. There was an AI grant last year that we put in for. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, but it would have been $75,000 for the district to kind of create an AI team to pilot these different programs. Where I am right now in New Jersey, we are fortunate to not have to rely really that much on federal funding, just because it's a level. There are different factor groups in New Jersey when it comes to socioeconomics, J being the highest. And where I work now in Northern Highlands, we tend to be in factor group J. So we're not all that reliant upon federal funding. We're more reliant upon our local tax base. The fact that, we haven't yet in New Jersey received any federal funding whatsoever in regards to Title I, Title II, which we normally fund our PD Pathways programs, our actual like professional development, and then Title IV, which is for district technology. And it's a flat line $10,000 that all school districts get. We haven't received those entitlement grants. So we do have to figure out additional funding sources for us to run some of those PD programs that we've been running over the last few years. And the way that it works in the New Jersey when it comes to grants is once you pay for something out of local funds, you can't pay for it out of federal funds anymore. It becomes a situation where you're supplanting your programs and you're not supplementing your programs like the money is supposed to be spent for. So for us, we're in a fortunate position where we're not really that reliant upon the federal government. Anywhere we have to go out and look for competitive grants, we'll do that as a school district. But, the the consequences of school districts not receiving the funding that they've expected to receive through these entitlement grants over the last however many years, it's going to have a significant impact on middle income, struggling learners, and, where we should be trending upwards when it comes to investing money in infrastructure and technology. We won't be able to, because you still have to continue to fund people's salaries.
Yeah, exactly. And I do see that kind of challenge, especially like in today's world where the technology is, as we talked about, right, has the potential to actually make such a big impact, and not being able to actually invest in it is going to, like, as you said, like increase the gaps themselves.
It's going to be significant. It's going to be a significant problem down the road, because even for school districts that didn't get that much money in Title I funding, well, they use those programs to fund. They've used that money to fund programs. Those programs obviously are beneficial. You don't want to cut like a reading specialist. So you would get the funding from the federal government to pay for the reading specialist, and then you would use local funds. Like, okay, we're now going to invest in PD for technology. Well, now if you're not getting those federal funds anymore to pay for the reading specialist, what are you going to do? You're going to keep the reading specialist with your local funds, and you're going to cut the technology initiative. So even for those school districts that really don't get that much money and don't think that this is a big deal, it is going to be a big deal, because there are really going to have to be a lot of difficult decisions that school districts are going to make. And we normally get our entitlement funding for the fiscal year starting July 1st. We haven't heard anything even about allocations yet. So we are really far behind the funding cycle.
Yeah, totally hear you. So how does all of this actually inform and actually change your district level strategy, and how does those changes actually trickle down to the professional development and all the things that you actually really want to do?
Yeah, I like I said, we're fortunate here where we're going to be able to use local funds to pay for our professional development. We would only get a few $1,000s from the federal government, because again, it's based on some sort of formula, and the money gets released from Washington D.C. to Trenton, and then Trenton, for the New Jersey Department of Education, figures out how much funding is going to go. So I think districts have to prioritize. I know that that's kind of a stock answer that everybody says, but I think districts have to really look at what is most important. And a lot of times, unfortunately, teacher training gets pushed to the side for things that are teacher training. The way that I look at it is a long-term investment. School districts can't necessarily operate in many cases in long-term investments. They have to operate kind of in short-term investments, because that's the way the public sector is kind of, it's set up. You're not supposed to be making money. If you get $10 million, you're supposed to be spending $10 million at the end of the year. But they're going to have to make really difficult decisions and understand that long-term investment is going to pay higher dividends, because it's only going to make your teachers more effective practitioners in the room. So there's a lot of really difficult decisions that are going to have to be made.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of the efficiency gains that you actually realize, even in corporate world, and I think similar thing holds in the public sector too, is through those long-term initiatives. And if you don't fund them, then you're still kind of have to actually work extra hard to actually get those gains and so on. So you did talk about like PD and diversity of like teacher population at different levels, and the need for different level of training to actually help them with like the technology and so on. So how do you kind of tailor PD for such a diverse population so that you can actually meet everybody where they are?
So we have something that my predecessor brought into Northern Highlands. It's called the PD Pathway Program. So the way that we run the PD Pathway, our model is, for me, kind of a perfect example of that. Teachers choose focus areas based on their needs. I mean, the year prior, I'll kind of start with the cycle, but the year prior, we have teachers. So sometime in May, this past May, 2025, teachers put proposals together. Well, we do a needs assessment first, right? So the first thing we do in April is, hey, we send out a Google form and we say, hey, what are your PD needs for next year? Like, what would you like to see? What do you want to see professional development on, right? Then what we do is we publicly release that data to our staff. And then in May, we put out a solicitation for people to be PD pathway presenters. It's a lot of alliteration, but it makes sense. So we then hear the proposals, and based on our PD committee, then we make a determination as to which ones we're going to move forward with and which ones we're not. So once we select the 10 or so, 11 or so PD pathways that we're going to go with, teachers then choose the focus area based on their need, their goal, and their passion. We offered everything from like standard aligned assessment to project-based learning, tech integration. We have obviously a few of them dealing with artificial intelligence this year. We have AI and humanities, AI and world language, and AI and STEM. Those are 3 different PD pathways that people have the ability to sign up for. The groups are flexible. You know, if the teachers want to shift, you know, we allow some shift and flexibility. Some teachers go really deep into one topic for an entire year. Others sample different sessions for each cycle. We make time for it. Like I said before, our late entry days are protected for collaboration and those PD meetings. We have delayed openings where our staff come in 2 hours before the students do, and they'll have a PD pathway for about an hour where they'll have that professional development, and then they'll have kind of an hour to kind of get their feet underneath them. That time we talked about is a really, really, really important resource. A lot of teachers feel like it's lacking, and then they start on with their academic day. So I think developing a PD program that isn't one size fits all, and you allow teacher choice, and you afford them the agency and treat them like adults to make the best decision for them possible as to what they're passionate about for this year. This past year, we had a really good PD pathway group that was on grit. They read, it was a book study, and they read the Angela Duckworth book, and they talked about how they can implement that within their own classrooms. So we're not talking about professional development where, we have standards-based assessments as a PD pathway, but we also have, hey, how are you going to make your students a little bit grittier? And how are you going to make them learn from their mistakes and try to grow from their mistakes? So we have a little bit of everything and 2 far sides of the spectrum and everything in between. And we're happy to give our teachers choice, treat them like adults, and say that you're going to make the best decision for you. It's not one size fits all. We don't have to sit in a faculty room anymore, right, in a faculty meeting anymore, and just go through this training, right? Another thing that we've done too, I'm actually in the process of doing it. I'm creating short YouTube videos on how to use, because we have all these new initiatives that are coming in, right? We have Brisk AI, we have all these other initiatives, and we have teachers who say, okay, we're doing all of these great things. How do I use these things? And again, timing a valuable resource. We now have the ability to create on-demand professional development where if somebody wants to learn how to use, the video I actually just created a little while ago was I created a 3-minute YouTube video using the AI platform Brisk that we're going to go with next year to develop meaningful rubrics based on the assignment. And you can actually click within the agent to identify what New Jersey student learning standards you want to hit. And I just created a short video because the alternative to that would be A, somebody not knowing how to do it. And B, the other alternative is we're doing it in a faculty meeting where you have 35% of the people possibly engaged and everybody else kind of on their phones. And that's not an indictment on our staff. I can say that I am one of those individuals as well. In a large group, I tend to disengage. So there's so many other opportunities out there, and we have to start to think outside the box a little bit as school leaders. Just because we've been standing in faculty rooms for the last 100 years talking about like bloodborne pathogens, we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, so true, so true. And I think that's what is happening, right? Like your essentially job description or things that you are supposed to do is actually changing so much that, as you said, like say it would have taken somebody to either do the training in a separate class or actually have somebody else actually come in and create a video and so on and so forth. So that's great. And also a great suggestion on the book suggestion. Great. It's on my reading list. I haven't gone to it.
It's a great book. It's one of those, again, I'm going to sound hyperbolic, but it's transformative.
Yeah. Great. Cool. So I think we're closing in. So let's spend some time on a lightning round and hear about your leadership style. Okay. So maybe as a quick setup. I feel like I'm on a hot seat. Adjustment. So what is Michael, one word that describes your leadership style?
Oh man, passionate. I like to feel like I'm passionate about what I do. I'm really passionate about education. I love teaching. I love learning. And I'm very passionate about inspiring teachers to do things to inspire kids.
Oh, that's amazing. Great. I think next one, I think you already answered it. Maybe you have another one in your pocket. Okay. A recent PD book or article that influenced your thinking.
There's a really good book that's out there. Can I give you two? I know it's a lightning round.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but the World Economic Forum just recently released the top skills of 2030, and we're using that as kind of like a roadmap as to like, hey, where are we going to go? And there's another book that I just read. It's called Rigor by Design, and it talks about how we make our curriculum in schools more rigorous, but in a meaningful way, not just to make it harder, but to make it more rigorous in how that kind of struggle helps develop learners in a more meaningful way.
Wonderful. Great. Favorite tool for classroom observation?
So it's a really good question. So in New Jersey, we have a bunch of different observation models. We go with Kim Marshall is the person that we use as our model for our observation models. I actually just gave a PD a few weeks ago. I'm not doing a good job of making this a lightning round. I apologize. I gave a PD.
No worries.
We gave a PD a few weeks ago about like in New Jersey you have to do like annual refresher training on your observation tool. It's mandated by the Department of Education, but where I work, the directors and I, we gave this PD and we kind of talked about how can we better observe teachers. And I think one of the ways, or the way that I've always been kind of observing, is I bring my laptop in and I almost write a narrative as to what's going on. And because I'm so focused on typing the narrative, I miss looking at the class as a student. So one of my personal goals for this year is to bring no technology with me, to bring a notebook, write in shorthand the best I possibly can. I have to learn some sort of shorthand and try to engage with the lesson as if I'm not an observer, but I'm a student.
Great. Yeah, no, totally hear you. What's one district level change you're most proud of?
District level change I'm most proud of. So I'm going to talk about my previous district. I've only been here for a year. I think anybody who's in administration who's gone from one district to another knows that you don't really make changes your first year. We added a CTE a CTE program here this past year, which is remarkable.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. We're very excited about that. But in my previous district, we were losing a lot of our students to the local vocational school. It's like an academy school that students have the ability to go to in that county. And in order to kind of combat that, what we did was, it was a two-pronged attack. We ended up really partnering with a company that helped us manage our marketing and social media strategy. So we had we always did really incredible things within our four walls, but our walls it was like a castle. Our walls were like really high, so the community had no idea what was going on within our four walls. So one of the things that I told the staff that we were going to do is we're going to flatten our walls. And we partnered with this company, and we actually just did it. I mean, our website where I am now at Northern Highlands is switching over, depending on when this is released, within the next few days. but it allows staff members to be content creators, where they're doing something cool in their class. They take their phone, they take a picture of it. They can click on 4 buttons and it posts to, our school Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then our own website live feed. And they write a little caption. It goes into a waiting room where a moderator like myself either approves it, modifies it, denies it, and then boom, it goes right into the community. Because, as we've seen probably with recent politics, Facebook and social media has a major influence on the way that people think. And if we can kind of pepper people with all of the incredible things that are going on within our school, and for us, it stemmed the tide of those students who were leaving district, and it kept some of them there because of the silly things we were posting on social media. So that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, no, that's really amazing. And as a parent, I really hear you on that front. Great. So now, this is interesting. What gives you hope about the future of public education?
So, like I said before, I work in an incredible district, and I'm thinking about 4 or 5 right now who are first, second, third, fourth, fifth year teachers who are as I'm a parent too. My daughter's going to be in 6th grade. My son's going to be in 3rd grade. And I always kind of think in the back of my mind when I'm having a conversation with a teacher during a post-observation conference or during during an observation, do I want my kid to have this person as a teacher? And all of those people, we have incredibly, more seasoned staff here too, but talking about having the hope for the future, I think with the people that we have here and the people that I get the opportunity to work with at Ramapo College who are in the teacher preparation program, I see a lot of people that I would want my children to have as teachers. So it's the people.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Yeah, to hear that. And I think that I totally hear you, and I do feel hope. Looking at my younger one is also in elementary. He's going to 4th grade, and it's amazing that we are, and hopefully we are going to actually arm this next generation with all the tools so that they are able to actually devote more time to student, as you had initially said, to instruction and helping and mentoring kids compared to all the bureaucratic work.
I honestly think we're on, and we have to kind of be the forerunners of it, but I think we're on the dawn, again, at the risk of sounding hyperbolic. I think we're at the dawn of an educational revolution right now. I think that student agency and autonomy is going to play a major role in what education looks like over the course of the next 10 years, because it's a hard cycle to break. People need, as a social studies teacher, this kind of kills me as a former history teacher, but rote memorization is kind of passé. It's not necessary anymore because all of the information that you need is at your fingertips. Yes, you should have a working knowledge of facts, but it's not the content that's important. It's the skill. It's the content that's the vehicle that's going to drive the skill forward. And I think that that's really important. And I think that teacher training hopefully will catch up to that. And I think AI can help teachers develop even more dynamic lessons.
Yes, absolutely. So we just have a few minutes left. So to recap, it was a wonderful 1-hour conversation. Michael, thanks for talking about your experience, how the teacher support has evolved in the last few years. We talked about how instructional innovation is actually changing learning as well as teaching. Also, how feedback and assessments are so important, and how we are actually navigating through some of those challenges. Thanks for all the wonderful feedback and nuggets, as well as the book recommendations that you had.
Thanks, Sarvesh. I
So
appreciate
yeah, any last piece of advice that you would like to give district leaders who are like trying, such as yourself, who are trying to support teachers in a changing environment?
No, I just think, think outside the box as much as you can. It sounds very cliche, and lean into AI, because if you need prompting as to how to develop innovative programs for your students, leverage the generative tools that are out there and try to be as intentional with every interaction as possible. If my math is correct, during the course of an 8-hour workday, you have 960 30-second opportunities to, you've 960 30-second opportunities. If you take 2 and you're intentional with 2 30-second interactions, and you're actually physically present where your feet are, and you're not thinking about what meeting you have to go to or what agenda you have to develop or anything like that, you can develop meaningful connections with people. And ultimately, we had a great conversation about how artificial intelligence is going to make our lives as practitioners better. And I think that there's this general fear within the public, especially within the education sphere, that it's going to replace us as educators. But what makes us unique is the human connection and the human interaction. So, just continue to focus on the human aspect of this and try to make humanity just a little bit better each day.
Great. Oh, wonderful. So, Mike, actually, I'm going to stop it, and if we can stay for a few more minutes,
sure. Yeah.
And then we can actually see with uploads and so on, and briefly talk to you. So thank you, Michael. I really appreciate having you here, and thanks for your time. A wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Sarvesh. I appreciate everything. I do.
Have a story, question, or insight from your own classroom or campus? We would love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in to the Magna AI Podcast. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube and learn more at magnaeducation.ai. Because when we support teachers with the right tools, we unlock what's possible for every learner.